Howdy dee.
Dear alien who art in heaven,
Howdy dee.
lean and skinny, about 6'7".
Howdy dee.
Though we know you ain't our brother,
Howdy dee.
are you friend or
Not
foe?
foe or other. I think we nailed that. Why didn't they make this into a musical? That's the real question.
I know, that was the question I was asking myself all along. It's about a play, but it should have been a musical.
Well, welcome back to Remake Hot Take, the podcast where we play studio executives pitching remake ideas of our favorite and new media. I'm Marriya Schwarz.
And I'm Brooke Rees, and today we are doing Wes Anderson's most recent film, Asteroid City, which came out, like back in June or something?
Something.
May, June, around there, a couple months ago, but it just hit streaming like last
on
week.
Peacock.
Woo! On Peacock, so that's
Howdy dee.
Because it was nice and accessible, because Wes Anderson, I feel like it's a movie, specifically Asteroid City, but I guess we can get into our personal backgrounds with his films as well. But this one was this was a minimum of 2-time watching, two viewings minimum to kind of piece together everything that was happening, at least for me. So the streaming service is a requirement in my mind, because I was like, pause, write down a note, pause again, write down.
I saw someone who wrote on Letterboxd that they saw it in theaters and they're like, I booked my second ticket halfway through.
Yeah. I read that same review. I was like, yeah, that's about right. If I saw this in theaters, even remotely fatigued, and eating popcorn and missing lines, it would have been over for me. I would have been checked out. I would have been like, let me just look at the pretty colors, because I would not have been putting together any of the themes here. Do we want to give a quick summary for our viewers before we then dive into maybe our personal Wes Anderson views, and then get into the movie?
So it's about infinity, and I don't know what else. Would you like to try the summary?
Yeah, so the first time that I watched it, I thought it was about it's a behind the scenes film narrated and hosted by Bryan Cranston about the making of a play called Asteroid City. And then mostly the color parts of it, so all of that's in black and white, and then the color, his usual style, and that hyper stylized pastels kind of Wes Anderson style is all what kind of the content of the play is. But then on my second watching, I realized that it's actually not a behind the scenes look at an actual play that was supposed to be actually playing. The narrator, Bryan Cranston, says right off from the start, he says, Asteroid City does not exist. It's an imaginary drama created expressly for this broadcast. The characters are fictional. The text, so the actual play, is a hypothetical one. The events are fabrication, but together they present an authentic account of the inner workings of a modern theatrical production. So it's technically, it is just a behind the scenes with Bryan Cranston of a fictional play to showcase to whatever viewers are watching Bryan Cranston's TV show of what it might be like to be on the behind the scenes of a New York City Broadway play.
It's like Lion King 1.5.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that, but I will trust you.
Someone on YouTube said that this whole play is the dream that the alien had. And I don't know if I got that.
When did he have a dream?
He maybe slept before and after we saw him.
Oh, okay. So this is just a hypothetical that this is the alien's dream, on the voyage here. He took a little cat nap between his planet and Earth. Okay, I think that's an interesting take, but Yeah, that's like the gist of it. For anyone that watched it once, maybe had a few drinks before going to the movie theater and kind of clocked out. That's
I don't think that would, I feel like that would make you get it.
yeah, actually you may have needed to be like drunk or high to really like vibe with this in its essence. That is kind of the summary of what Asteroid City is on paper, but I think it's a Wes Anderson film. Like I think the actual plot, what you would put under like the Netflix description is far less important than like the themes and like the metaphors that he's trying to use throughout this. And like I guess that in itself is kind of one of his points that I was getting from this. Like it doesn't really matter like what the play is about. We don't need to know like the true meaning. And so it doesn't quite matter what the ins and outs of this movie are. It's like the point is that it was made and that it's something that's like created and the process in itself and all that kind of movie about a movie stuff.
It hurts me.
It
But
does.
Brooke, do you like Wes Anderson films in general?
I guess I've only seen, I saw like half of Grand Budapest Hotel when my parents were watching it one time. And I like walked past, stayed for like 15 minutes, and then left. And then I once tried to start watching um what Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah, I once got like 10 minutes into that film, then stopped that one. And then the only one that I've seen in its entirety before this one was Moonrise Kingdom. That one I liked. I think I need to watch it again, honestly. Actually, after watching this film, I was like, I need to give that one another shot because I liked it, but I was kind of like, this guy's like up his own ass kind of a thing. Like I was just like, I don't know. People really like ride or die Wes Anderson. And they're actually like, I will say like a generalization about this fandom, at least for the people that I know that love him. I feel like they're actually like genuinely like nice people that love Wes Anderson, but they're like a very particular type of like artsy lovers. And I don't know if I would like have initially before seeing this one have like associated with that camp just because I've just off of seeing Moonrise Kingdom it kind of was like I think this went over my head or like I think I didn't get this but after this one this is by far out of those like poor attempts at the first two that I mentioned and then Moonrise Kingdom this one was like far and above my favorite one that I've seen so far and it actually has me like interested to see if some of his other films if I need to give him another go or if I'm in like the right headspace to appreciate him. And I will say, so all of that aside, the actual content of Moonrise Kingdom and the couple that I abandoned 15 minutes in, due to like plot and it seeming just kind of like not worth my time in the moment. I do. Well, I don't know. It's like, sometimes
Harsh.
no. We watch movies for different reasons, right? And like I think the two times that I tried to watch like um Grand Budapest Hotel, my parents were watching it. I wasn't even involved in that. That was a flyby. You can't fault me for that one. That was a walk through the living room as I'm on my way to the kitchen. And whatever was in the kitchen was a stronger calling than Grand Budapest Hotel. But fantastic Mr. Fox. I think I was like, oh, like an animated film I want to like watch like a Disney movie or something that's like easy, no brain required. Like you can take out your brain, set it over to the side. And it just wasn't the right thing for that moment. But even all of that aside, even all of those preconceived like like notions against him, I did always appreciate like I appreciate a person that has like a color palette and sticks to it. Like you can spot a Wes Anderson film from across, the street. And that's why they were doing the TikTok trend of like Wes Anderson. Like you don't see that with other directors. Like everyone kind of knows his style and appreciates like his color palette, especially is what a lot of people talk about, kind of the pastels.
I wonder what his house looks like.
It's probably totally opposite. It's like brutalism.
I don't bring my work home.
Yeah, he's like, that's me as a director. That's not me as Wes the human. But no, I appreciate that. And I think it's beautiful. And I was actually thinking to myself before this, though, he films very like almost like two-dimensionally. And in my head, I was like, man, he should be like a play director because he just absolutely nails like moving stuff, like physically moving items, like in the mise en scène of his like films. And the camera's always moving like side to side and never like into the frame. And I was thinking that to myself, and I was like, hey, he did a play now. This is a
He
movie.
heard you.
He heard me like 3 days ago when I thought about doing this film for the podcast. He was like, Brooke, Rees, I hear you. And he delivered. In essence, I haven't given him enough of a shot. The 3 films that I watched prior to this weren't quite my cup of tea, but I have always respected his distinct style. And I think it's beautiful. I feel like his films are ones where every single like frame is something that I would want like hung up on my wall. I just want to like screenshot, that's a picture, screenshot, that's another one. Like he pays so much attention to that detail. And it's just beautiful every time. But yeah, what about you? What's your history with Wes Anderson, or any preconceived notions that you were bringing to this pod?
Well, we have a history.
You and Wes go way back.
Wes the human, not Wes the director.
Okay.
No. I've seen Grand Budapest Hotel, I've seen Moonrise Kingdom, and I've seen, what is it, like Darjeeling Limited? Yeah, the train one. And I didn't really like any of these necessarily. Like I can again like appreciate the aesthetic quality. But I think like my issue with Wes Anderson is that it kind of feels like all of the movies are the same. So I was like, I wanted to see Asteroid City because Maya Hawke is in it. But other than that, like it's like I've seen Asteroid City on a train. I've seen Asteroid City in a camp. I've seen Asteroid City in a hotel. Like it always like he has like these overcomplicated lines, these awkward people, brainiacs, a random like scout trooper, whatever. Like it's always like the same kind of thing. So it's like the only thing that really changes is like the setting. But it's usually like the same exact cast of characters, the same style of dialogue, the same all of that. And so it doesn't really like pull me in or something because I kind of feel like I've seen all of them, and maybe that's like a preconceived idea that I have that I need to get over, and maybe I just need to look at them more.
You think like the themes are similar too, or just like his
I
style
think
is
all the characters are all the same. It's just
okay?
like this is like a new, and it's always like broken people who are usually going through divorce or like where they tell their life story very easily and everything. I don't know. That's kind of like all it is, or like dysfunctional families. Everyone, like no one should be a parent in any of these movies. Um, and so I feel like I struggle a little bit. And I think again, like what you were saying, I don't watch movies necessarily to like think. I watch movies for like escapism and entertainment. So I like when it's kind of easy. And I feel like Wes Anderson films make me feel stupid. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just like I'm not like I don't know if it's even like called art house cinema or whatever, but that's just like, I don't want to have to think about it. And so I kind of liked this one in the fact that they were like at the end, I don't understand the play. So then it was like, okay, I'm allowed to not understand the movie because that's how I feel.
Yeah, he was actually like, what the fuck did I just do? He was like, I got lost in the sauce a bit on this
Mhm.
one, but it's okay as long as you consume the sauce. Yeah, I would say like I think I do like films that make me think. I just need to be in the right context and the right setting for that. So when it hits me off guard, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I will have a headache from trying to glean meaning. And like cinephiles will say that like all film has meaning, right? Like even a Disney film. And I understand that. And I agree that lots of films have meanings, and even something stupid like any kind of comedy, it's just for the laughs. But I think that like context isn't important. And like I think it's okay for people to say that they want something that's just a bit more toned down in its thematic elements.
Mhm. It's like I work in academia, so I don't want to like I analyze things all the time that I don't want to bring my work home. I don't want to have to analyze to like just watch the movie. It's like an extra step you can take afterwards, and choose not to, which is what I would do. Um, maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know.
No, you're not. You're not. But I don't think that he's, I don't know. I don't think he would be considered art house. I think he's so popular and you know, with even just like the TikTok trend showing, I think he's like pretty mainstream. It's just he's hyper stylized in a very specific, like you said, specific kind of themes, specific characters that he does. But yeah, I mean, all of that being said, do you want to go ahead and analyze this film or point out specific moments that made you think or made you feel something?
Or we should just end the podcast here. No, let's yes, I understand. Let's do it. Woo.
Yeah, so we can like jump into, I guess, just like things that maybe, did you get a chance to watch it twice or just once?
Yes, I watched it twice.
Okay. Was there anything, I have a list of like things that made more sense on my second watch. Or was there anything in particular you wanted to like talk out or talk about?
Um, you can start the analysis, I mean.
Okay. One thing that I thought was funny that I caught on the second watch. So it's like, well, first of all, I guess we could start off with like something that I noticed in this film versus which I guess I didn't really notice in Moonrise Kingdom. I wasn't paying super as close attention to that since I wasn't doing it for a podcast, but I love like the role of the camera in a Wes Anderson film is something that I'm sure there are like 100 film scholar articles on. But I thought it was really interesting and I was like trying to like kind of suss out what it means to have all of these characters like constantly like break the fourth wall by looking directly into the camera, and if there is any kind of, I mean, he's doing everything intentionally, so he means something behind it. But I think, I don't know, like what do you think it could mean or what it does for the film?
I mean, I noticed it a lot when in the parts where they're like being presented as the cast, and that was I kind of felt like part of the backstage element of it. I don't know, do they look at the camera directly at other parts? I mean, sometimes when they like mess up in the show, like when Augie runs off or whatever and stuff. But I didn't really notice it too much. I thought it was just kind of like part of the behind the scenes. Like it's like the big actors are not supposed to do this. So when it's like a sign between reality and not reality, even though there isn't really a reality. Also, I feel bad for Scarlett Johansson. She's an actress playing an actress playing an actress, which I feel like would just hurt.
This was her inception. It was like this really put her to the test of what kind of subtle characteristics she's supposed to be portraying. Yeah, they look at the camera constantly, even in like what we would consider like the story world of Asteroid City. I think one of the best examples I like of it is when Woodrow is in the meeting with the doctor, the scientist, and like she's just concluded her presentation, and then he like looks back at the camera again. He like does a double take back to the camera.
He is Jim.
He basically is, because he's like going up to her to tell her like, oh, those numbers are like what are those numbers? They look significant. They're today's date. And he kind of like beckons the camera to like come with him. So I think that's interesting. I think it's like also, I guess there's kind of like a voyeuristic notion too of our main character Augie being like a war photographer and what it means to constantly like be taking people's pictures in like vulnerable settings. And like he never asks for consent and they always turn it out. Like he always gets his photo. So I think it's like making us hyper aware of of the camera, like as its own kind of character in
Mm.
this setting. Oh, but one thing that I thought was interesting on the second watch, because like my classification of the main character Augie would be like, I don't think he's as much of a brainiac as Woodrow as his son, but it kind of like slips in every now and then that like he has like these, kind of science facts as well. And then we don't get that much like background info on mom either, just their relationship to her, but not much about her other than she's Margot Robbie sitting in a bathtub smoking a cigarette on
Well, it
like
was like I thought it was interesting that the three daughters are all named after
that's what I was
stars
just
or constellations or whatever, but then the
doesn't
mom
know
doesn't
the
know the
name.
stars. Yeah.
That was
Wow.
that's what was on my list. That's what I was leading up to. I was gonna say because dad's not quite like the brainiac that Woodrow, the brainiac, is, and then mom also is characterized as not even knowing what these constellations are. But on my second watch, I
She
was like,
just like those names sound cute.
yeah,
Found them in a baby book.
Pandora, Andromeda, and Cassiopeia, which I was like, oh my God, if I were those girls, I'd be like, okay, Cassiopeia, I'm going by Cassie. Andromeda, I'm going
But
by.
they're embracing it. They're like, I mean, they have the most confidence of any character in the whole movie. They
Yeah,
are not just witches in training, they are witches and vampires and fairies.
yeah.
And
I
I
love
fear them.
I fear and respect them. They are perhaps my favorite characters in the whole film.
Right.
But yeah, so I thought that was something that I noticed on the second watch too. And I was like, did like little Woodrow name his like baby sisters when he's like 10 years old or something? Because that would kind of make sense. But
Especially because Woodrow isn't named, unless there's a star named Woodrow and I just
I
am
don't think so.
ill-informed.
Woodrow Lindbergh. It seems like Woodrow Wilson and Charles Lindbergh, but I don't know who named him either. But yeah, so I thought that was another interesting thing. Was there anything else that jumped out at you, or do you want me to just keep going down my list?
I don't know if I had any deep things. I just had my thoughts.
Okay.
Would you like me to go?
Yeah, let's jump back and forth.
I was angry that they didn't do anything with the Universal logo. Just jumping right from the beginning.
Okay.
You know how they like when in the film Pitch Perfect, they
Yeah.
changed the sound to be a cappella of the
Oh.
Universal logo. I think they should have Wes Andersonized the Universal logo because it was boring.
So like right off the bat, you were like, that's a tick in the no category.
Yeah, it should have been the Universal logo dressed as a Cub Scout.
I like that.
Which
Because
were you a scout?
I was so in the Girl Scout ranking, I think like the second tier is like a brownie. I got up to the brownie level.
Hmm.
And I've told you this story before, but for the pod listeners, I got up to the brownie level and then my mom took me out of it because our troop leader murdered her mother by sitting on top of her. She was a
Oh
large
yeah.
woman. She was like a 400 or 500 pound woman. And she sat on top of her elderly mother, like intentionally, to murder her. And then we were like, I don't know, Girl Scouts isn't for me,
No one
that's
else is safe.
the line.
Oh God.
But yeah, I was a brownie, sold Girl Scout cookies. I paid my dues. Spent time in the service, if that's what you're asking.
Did you wear your uniform all the time? I don't know. I don't know what idea Wes Anderson has of what a scout does. It's not like a military uniform that you're
Wait,
wearing
who's wearing them
constantly.
here?
The cookie trooper
Oh, and her mom,
and
right?
her mom, which
Yeah.
I like. Are we supposed to thank them for their service?
Yes. They're actually part of the military in this scenario. It's like they're in on the meeting with the US government when they're like, we gotta quarantine this shit. And then they're like, cookie troopers, how do we feel? Does this plan align with the cookie trooper national guidelines? And they're like, yes, it does.
But I thought this one was so interesting because it has like the troop aspect that was in Moonrise Kingdom, but then there's also the hotel aspect of like Grand Budapest Hotel. And so it was like I don't know, the like mismatch of like all of Wes Anderson tropes. Like it was like when, Hannah Montana goes to stay at the Tipton Hotel. I don't know. It was just like
This is his crossover episode. This
yeah.
is actually his like Avengers. This is his Avengers Endgame, I think.
Well, I also I'm very concerned about all the actors. Like, are they just kept in a warehouse at somewhere until the next movie? And like, how did Owen Wilson break free? That's my question.
What's the main character? Jason
Schwartzman?
Schwartzman, yeah. Jason Schwartzman specifically. They just like wheel him in and out. They're like, all right, Wes has another one for you. And they just unveil him from the warehouse. Like,
But they had so many like new people this time. So I'm like, have they been drugged and added to the floor?
if we're sticking with the military theme, they've been drafted.
Yeah.
Got their Wes Anderson card. It's like you either have to go into a Marvel movie or a Wes Anderson movie.
Sometimes both.
Sometimes
Scarlett's incredible.
Scarlett has range. That's why.
She's also a person of color.
But yeah, I feel like it's one or the other, and then you're just stuck in it. But that is true. Back to your main point, I feel like anytime a movie does something with like the studio logo, you're like, oh shit. Like
I was so disappointed.
I feel like the best like image that I have in my head for that is like the Warner Brothers Harry Potter, and like every time it would get like darker and darker each movie, and I was like people are gonna die. I was like, oh my god. I was like, there was lightning with the Warner Brothers logo. Like, this is it. Someone's out. And I was correct with the later films. But yeah. Oh, I guess one of the scenes that made the least sense to me the first run through, it's only like I think 20 or 30 minutes into the film, is like the fake background for the Bryan Cranston TV show of Augie's Augie's actor auditioning kind of for his role to the fake writer of the play. What's his name? Carl Epps or Earps?
Earps? Yeah, Edward Norton. I'm just gonna call him Edward Norton.
Auditioning for Edward Norton. That one hit me.
Happy Pride.
Yeah, well, yeah.
What the heck, Brooke?
But no. Like, I was just so confused at what was happening. And I did not realize on the first watch that it was an audition. I thought that it was like something happening in his head, because I think there's some line about like the writer becoming so close to like the character that he's writing for the main character that they kind of become one or something. So I thought it was just him like making out with himself. But upon second watch,
they do become one, Brooke.
they very much, there was intercourse there. But upon second watch, I think it is supposed to be like an audition. And I thought it was really interesting that he's doing like a scene that I think is like a cut scene from the real play that we see. And it directly ties into the last scene, or one of the last scenes, with Margot Robbie as the rejected actor, the wife who plays my actor or whatever.
That's my favorite scene.
That's my favorite scene too. Well, Margot Robbie, she's like really hitting hard with the existential films this year, but she plays it so good.
I hope she makes it.
What do you mean?
She's actually a good actor. And I feel bad that she was cut this time, but I think maybe she has a bright future.
Yeah, I think big things ahead for her. She showed potential. She's an up and comer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved that last scene, but it was like the dialogue from the audition scene ties in with like what she's saying in that one, and they're like not direct, it's not like word for word this was the cut scene, but it's like they're able to put in like those same things and then have them reflect back later.
Yeah, because it's like the whole like, if she was here, she would have gotten the alien to share the secrets of the universe, which I think is like overestimating the power of your wife. Like,
Listen, Margot is a hottie. Like I would tell her the secrets of a different universe. But also, if you're an alien, imagine coming down to Earth and like the first person that you see is Margot Robbie. That would just be a disservice because she is like such a beautiful human that like everyone else is gonna be like, oh, what's wrong with the rest of them? Like, why do the rest of them look like that?
oh,
Like
that's
she's
Barbie. It's
Barbie. She's stereotypical Barbie. She's perfect. She's beautiful. Um, but yeah, I like in the first scene at least, like we know is we don't know yet that the alien comes down. We know that, you know, his wife has died. And when he does the audition scene, at least how I interpreted it, when he does the audition scene and he says that line about like, you know, how do we know like what's out there or whatever, what's the meaning? And then he said, like, if there was meaning, like my wife would have talked to him already, made him laugh. Like you think he's talking about God. Like you
Mm.
think that his wife has gone to, you know, heaven or gone to the afterlife and that she's talking with like this, you know, heavenly being. And then we get the juxtaposition at the end where we now have the context that they're talking about her meeting an alien in this alien planet, which I guess, you know, is another prominent theme throughout this of like what is meaning, what is out there, like afterlife, and are we alone in this world?
And are
But
we
I thought,
Episcopalian?
are we Episcopalian? I don't want to let Tom Hanks down. I would be Episcopalian for Tom. Like he just has to tell me what and when, and I will do that religion. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting way to use those two scenes to kind of like hit the nail on the head of that, like, is it God or isn't it an alien? And either way, we're not alone out there, I guess.
I mean, that's what Dwight's song is about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
And
Dwight understood more
Dwight
than anyone.
got it immediately.
I
Um,
think he should be allowed to choose whether he can smoke because he
yeah.
has the maturity levels already.
You're like, he is, I don't know, 8 years old, but he has the emotional maturity of just like a hard-worn cowboy
Mhm. I
fighting his way in the West.
I wish that those students got a chance to meet the like three witches little girls because they would have run that shit.
Like they're like 5-year-olds just running the 8-year-olds
Yeah.
and
No, they would have run the whole camp, all of the children if
oh,
they came together.
they're like head count.
Yeah.
Maya Maya hopped in line. She's counting off her number. I think you're right. Like we said, they are powerful beings.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, I did appreciate that this one didn't seem to have cultural appropriation because that's been an issue with Wes Anderson films of the
Oh,
past.
hasn't.
Like I did not like the Darjeeling Limited as a South Asian woman. It just
What's
did
that
not.
one about?
It's Asteroid City on a train.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Schwartzman.
Mhm.
What's the name? The director guy. And then I think Owen Wilson, they're like brothers or something going to India. I don't know. It
Oh,
made me
Adrian
uncomfortable.
Brody.
Yeah.
Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody and Owen Wilson, they all play brothers going to like India, and it made me super uncomfortable because it was like Wes Anderson, I think, because he also did the Isle of Dogs, which
Oh.
was Japanese, and it's
Oh.
like he kind of takes like the aesthetics of a culture without actually changing anything else about it. So it's like,
Oh wait, you talked about aesthetics of a culture. I that just reminds me, I did watch French Dispatch. I did watch
oh,
that one, which is his I think most recent one before that. And sorry
is
to
it
cut.
offensive for French people?
I don't think so. Hard to know. Um, from what I remember, I think that one was on Netflix or HBO, some like mainstream like streaming platform. Like in COVID, like height of COVID times. But I was like, someone had said with French Dispatch being his like last film, that this film felt like fully American.
Mm.
Which is ironic because I feel like cultural appropriation is a part of America. But he was like, let's bring it back to the old West where we weren't appropriating, we were just killing Native
Well,
Americans.
and there was some like British, like, the British Museum is under fire right now because I think I mean, they always steal stuff, but they stole another round of stuff. But then there's also just came out that like the they knew about this employee selling Roman jewelry for like 3 years on eBay. And so that's what kind of like the asteroid reminded me of. Like I was like, yes, alien, take more stuff. Take it back.
Take it back. But he gives it back though, and he catalogs it. Which is strange. I don't quite know what to make of that either. But yeah, back to your point, this film does feel very American. I guess I don't know too much about his other ones, to know like what he was what he was trying to appropriate in the other ones, but
Well, I think it's just like he changes the settings every time and not really the characters.
mhm.
And so he doesn't really grasp a sense of the culture other than like the setting and the aesthetic qualities of it. And so
Mhm.
he's just kind of utilizing it because it looks pretty and stuff. And so it kind of often feels like his American characters are like the main stars, and then the characters from that culture that he's representing feel very, very like one dimensional.
Okay.
Um, that was at least with Asteroid City on train. That was
Mhm.
my viewing of it. So,
All right. Was there anything else we wanted to jump into before getting
um,
to our remakes, or like maybe like funniest or best parts that you thought?
sure. Um, I will say something that always does like unsettle me is the awkward pauses in this movie. Like I just wonder how short it would be if we took out all the awkward pauses. I mean, I know that's like what makes Wes Anderson, but it's just like sometimes so uncomfortable to just sit there. I don't know. I
You
also
kind of
did
you want to pull it up on Adobe Premiere.
yeah, I
You're like,
was like, we can
let's
speed
on
this thing up. What are we, Twilight? Like
it.
we can speed it up. Also, did they ever explain the gunfire and siren thing that kept
I
happening?
read someone talking about like how with this being like the feel of an utterly American, like Wild West kind of feel, it kind of is hinting at like to be American is to have this background of violence.
Mm.
Which I agree. Like it's interesting on my second watch, I noticed like every single like man, I guess except for Augie, has a gun like in their pocket, which is very American West, but they all have like the exact same gun tucked into their front pocket, like wherever they go. Even like Tom Hanks as the grandpa, like he's packing one too. Which I guess like if we want to take like a nuanced analysis of that, it's interesting that like I feel like if I were in a film class, we would say that like Augie's gun is his camera. And like
Whoa.
that's listen, I took many film classes. We would say that like, that's like what he does for his job is to be this voyeuristic presence in a background of violence as a war photographer.
I mean, he doesn't bring a weapon, so
He
that's why
doesn't
he
bring
gets
a weapon.
grazed. Wow.
He gets the shrapnel in the photo with it. And like what does it mean to be someone who like captures violence but doesn't participate in it?
Mm.
But I think that I agree with that take, whoever wrote that on Letterboxd. I like that take of it, of this like kind of almost like casual violence in the background. Is I feel like the car chase scene is very much American like Wild West vibes. But then like the atom bomb testing in the
Mm.
background, when you think about like the release of like Oppenheimer like a month later, and I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but like some of the criticisms that I've seen against it are like the real people who lived in the desert in America where these atom bombs were tested, before they like went to market or whatever. Like they're pre Japan testing on what they call like a desolate part of the desert, which was actually like where real communities of people lived. I think a lot of them like indigenous communities, where completely like devastated by that violence. But yeah, so I liked that kind of take of it.
Gotcha. I also, a big part or like a recurring thing is that of how many things you can get from machines. So you can get land, cigarettes, drinks, milk, soup, snacks, etc. And I wanted to know, what would you put in a machine?
What would be
Like
my
a vending
vending machine
machine.
of
Yeah.
choice?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I have Barbie on the brain. So I would like, or like a Clueless type vending machine, of like outfits for the day. And then instead of like inserting the quarter, you insert yourself into the machine and then just it dresses you for the day with the
What if
different.
you get stuck?
Then they're like just banging a couple times.
Mm.
And then when you get stuck, but like you eventually get out, you get like two items. You get like two outfits for the price of one, and then you just like wiggle yourself out the slot. Um, but yeah, that's like the first thing that came to mind. What about you? What would be in your vending machine?
I think I would put like, going into a Hot Topic, that wall of t-shirts. I would
Mhm.
put random t-shirts in, and then you could just like get a random one. And I
I
think
like that.
that would be fun.
I like the random t-shirt, or it could be like, those pennies that you turn, but like in
Mm-hmm.
form. So it's like, I survived an alien invasion in Asteroid City.
Yeah.
They're definitely selling those t-shirts at the stand. I would say
Mhm.
like he's definitely good at doing like situational bits and all these
Mhm.
like funny, just offhand like quirks of the characters in this. He did like lure me in with the comedy of the mechanic bit right at the beginning. I was like, oh wait, I was like, this I could work with this. That was cute. That was funny. And as someone who's been to the mechanic like literally 14 times over the past 2 months, I was like, that does feel that's accurate. They're either like, this is a 75-cent problem and you'll be on your way, or we're gonna turn the car into scrap metal. And then when they were like, you actually have a third problem that we've never seen before, I was like, that's what my therapist says. Um, but
Yeah.
yes, I love that. I did love the relationship of Tom Hanks and this like son-in-law.
I
And
don't love you.
yeah, I don't love you. I like you, and I love, I like what you've done as a father to these kids that I do love, but you were never good enough for my baby girl that's now buried right next to the communal showers.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think like some of my issue comes from like the fact that it doesn't feel like any of the characters were necessarily different from each other. Like even their ways of speaking, like so many of them say da 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 da. I mean, like that kept on happening where it was um, like oh, um, you can use it anytime. My lab, I mean, like everyone spoke like that, that
mhm.
it felt like no one had individual characteristics. No one had like secrets that they weren't telling everyone. Like everyone was so open. So it just felt like everyone was exactly the same, which is, I think, something that kind of drives me crazy, where it's like the dialogue is kind of Wes Anderson's aesthetic, but in reality, people don't all speak the same, which I guess is part of like the reality, not reality
Yeah.
element, but I don't know.
Yeah, I actually like that. I feel like it's intentional on his part, and like you said, I think it is part of his like hyper stylized way. He wants a specific aesthetic and he wants a specific line delivery. But I really liked it, and I think like for me at least, like in the context of it being like a fake play, I actually kind of like that idea of like maybe he wasn't doing this intentionally, but it kind of felt to me like people being aware that they are saying lines. You know what I mean? Like there was kind of like a third layer there of it being a play. And like having been in like one or two high school plays, I'm like, yeah, that's how like sophomore Greg over there. I always use Greg. I'm sorry, Greg. Shout out to your dad. Here, let me pick a different name. Sophomore student George. I'm like, that's how he would deliver that line.
Mhm.
But I like it, and I like the way that it flows. But I can see what you mean about there being like less diversity in how the characters like react to one another. But
Mhm.
if we wanted to talk about, we both said that the Margot Robbie scene was one of our favorites. I feel like that's where that like film kind of, not film as in film, but like the film of that like washes away a little bit.
Yeah.
And we see like I think Margot Robbie's line delivery. And I was also like listening very closely. Like there's a way that she pronounces her words that just feel like, if we're talking, if we want to like have an analogy, like in my mind, everyone else in Wes Anderson is like snippy, witty, brief, like very like harsh and like edgy. And the way that Margot delivered her lines in a scene that it's not even like an emotional scene, but she's recalling an emotional scene and kind of giving that line delivery, they felt like very like round and like full
Yeah.
in the way that she like pronounces her. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I was like, oh, I just love the accent work that she's giving here. I just love the way that she's pronouncing those letters.
Yeah.
Uh,
It
but
was
yeah,
like a little bit slower
it
than
was.
everything else. Yeah. I
Which
also,
I guess if it is intentional, it's like maybe it's slower because it is like a rehearsal of
mhm.
something that didn't make it into the final product. And she's not giving a back and forth. She's giving both lines. She says, and
Yeah.
then you said this, and then I said this. But I just like loved that scene
Mhm.
so much. Why did it like speak to you, or why was that one of your favorite parts?
I think that was one of the moments where like it clicked, where it was like, the idea of the play of, it's like at its heart, it's kind of about Augie moving on and the family being okay, and
Mhm.
the kind of realization that I guess that, the alien thing has happened, but that's not really like the most drama in this family. Like that's like kind of a distraction from the actual issues that's going on. But I don't know. Do you think this play would do well?
I don't know. I haven't been, I think this play would do well in like smaller off Broadway, like
Mm-hmm.
off Broadway or like community. Like it would have to start at a community theater. And then I think it would gain like big success there. And then I think we can get ourselves up to off Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that actually the only Broadway like shows that I have seen have all been musicals. Wait, does Broadway have to be a musical or no?
No. No, it
Oh,
can be
okay. Then
plays.
I haven't seen anything other than musicals
I just
on
feel like
Broadway. So
it would be hard to accomplish some of the sets and everything that they seem to accomplish. Like how do you do an atomic bomb on set? I don't know.
well, I think we see like that like the view of what we're getting from the filmic kind of depiction of the play versus the behind the scenes of what it actually is. And we see like the huge like spaceship, and then the Schubert Green, the director, holds up like his dinky little toy that has a little green flip switch.
Mhm.
So I think it actually looks a lot shittier than the film
Yeah.
version that Wes Anderson is giving us. So I think they would just be dialing it down quite a bit in what it actually looks like.
I thought the alien was so cute. I thought he was just like me entering a room, very unsure.
Yeah, he was like, I'm just gonna scooch in right here and just take this. I love that, like, if I was that alien, I would be so embarrassed that I was ruining their little party, their little celestial party. Like, I would have been whatever, like secretary arranged the trip for that day. I'd be on the phone with HR. I'd be like, Margie needs to be fired because you know what? Every other day of the year. This is an abandoned, desolate, close after 9 p.m. asteroid crater. And I was like, and Margie picked the one fucking day that there was an audience. And I was like, and I have social anxiety, Margie. So me and Margie, we would be on an HR call together because I'd be like,
Mhm.
fire her ass. I'm so sick of this.
Well, we
This
sent them the date.
they sent them the date because it was like evacuate. It was like make sure no one's here. We have to do our cataloging. And I'd be so upset.
It's literally like me picking up like my Chipotle to go order when there's like it's very full.
You're like, I just need to get in here. Like, I swear I have business here.
I did
Like,
love Maya Hawke in this movie. I love her voice. I wish I had her voice. I would Ursula her voice. You know,
you
I don't know.
snap that right up in the scene
Yeah.
if you could.
But I appreciate, as a fellow educator starting up in the school year, uh, in 2 days, I appreciate her dedication to sticking to the lesson plan
Yeah.
because they don't pay you to change things up for when an alien comes. And like, yes, she lets like Montana take over, but that's because she is probably minimum wage employee. So if Montana wants to teach the class for free, let Montana teach.
She's like, listen, I'm still getting my adjunct hours. She's like, he can do whatever he wants. Oh, which shout out to Montana, played by the same actor that plays Mr. Wickham in the
Ooh,
2005 Pride and Prejudice, which we just talked about. I think like one last thing that I wanted to talk about was like the head of the military leader's speech, which again was very
that's
confusing.
life.
Yeah, which was very confusing upon first watch. Um, I liked it. I think this is something that is like less for plot, more for theme, because it's like a it's a confusing like juxtaposition from actually like the tone and the style of the rest of like the line deliveries like we talked about. And he just has this moment, and like at first I did not understand it all, but upon second watch, like he is trying to say that like he has had like lived this life of like not misery but like pain and like service as like a soldier, and that he's talking directly to the kids because he's like, we're all born in a time of violence and doom, but like me as a soldier, like I am out on the field like fighting these battles, but like you as someone who is an intellect, he's like, you guys are the scientists. And he's kind of saying it, I don't know, I interpreted it as kind of like, I don't know, kind of like person behind the innovation, the scientist behind the innovation, not realizing like what it's going to do to people on the ground. And he's
Mhm.
kind of coming from like a position of bitterness, but also a position of like hopefulness of like you have the power as like the future of innovation and intelligence to like decide what we're making, and it can either be like powers of destruction or it could be like hope for the future or something. I guess maybe just with Oppenheimer being out and the atom bomb looming in the background, I thought it was like it's a weird thematic turn, and
Mhm.
it's a weird turn in like tone, um, but I like it. I think I do like it. I settled on liking it. I don't think you liked it.
Well, it just hurts my brain a little bit. And then that final kind of, not the final scene, it's like the scene before the epilogue of like, you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know. It was like stuff that you would see like on a Pinterest board. And I was confused why we were all chanting. And is that the big meaning of it? And no one actually is seduced into a sleep in the play, or is that the part that we missed? And I don't know. I think I'm stupid.
I don't think you're stupid. I think these things are like meant to be a bit like I think you are finding like displeasure in not knowing like the trueness of like what its
I'm
intention.
Augie. Why does he burn his hand on the
Yeah,
cookie griddle?
I think you're actually totally in line with how you should be feeling. What I think that you're saying is that if he's going to like pick a framing device like we have, you want it to kind of stick with the same flow. And
Right?
that scene in particular is not in line with the rest of the framing device, which is like, oh, this is the fake behind the scenes story for this production. But then we have that scene where he's in the like plot point of it, it's saying that he's going this is before he's even written this play, and or like in the middle of writing it, that he goes to an acting class to kind of get the actors' opinions on how he wants to write this scene. And that like in doing so, he kind of spots these actors that he loves a lot and that kind of end up being cast in the play. But I don't know, what I got from that scene was just like he like wanted to like just double down on like the meaning of the meaningless and that like Augie like I don't know, what does it say, like you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I take it, it feels like a very like 1984 like Orwellian
Yeah.
like phrase that's just repeated throughout it multiple times. But if I had to like take a stab at it, I just kind of interpret it more as like you can't like move on from like grief or tragedy like if you don't experience it. And
Mm.
that was kind of what was happening in the play was, you know, like you had said, this total distraction and focusing on doom and gloom and what the meaning of life is, and like not allowing themselves to like feel the grief or like remember their mother or anything. I don't know. But yeah, that is like, it is another like tone jump in terms of the framing device. And it's one that doesn't fit in. But in my, like, usually if something like sticks out, he like wanted us to glean something from that, that clearly we need a third viewing to do. All right, but let's move on to our remakes if we
Okay.
wanted to. Okay, so I have one note here. We talked about how adorable the alien was. And I think so too. But then it cuts back to the framing device and it reveals that it's Jeff Goldblum in an alien suit. And I think that we should have just animated stop motion a little claymation Jeff Goldblum to begin with.
That's true.
Like I think he comes straight out of the mothership as is, like just pure Jeff coming from the mothership is what I think it should have been. I know that they were trying to appeal to this alien life form and a sense of otherworldliness, but I think that you get the exact same feeling with Jeff Goldblum coming down, and he could play it perfectly as is, no suit needed. So that's just one note. And then I think for another remake here, you know, this is like we've said many times now, it's a film about a behind the scenes film about a fake play, and then we also see that fake play. But if we're gonna lean in to the theater of it all, they need to lean into the theater kid aspect of this.
Mm.
And now I know that they're like mostly adults that are playing these and they're mostly adult actors in this theater world, but my experience of being in a play in high school, we need like an epilogue, and then the last scene needs to be them after like the final performance crying at an Applebee's and like performing their favorite lines. Because if Wes wants to capture the essence of theater and the essence of what it is to be an actor and to make something, he's completely forgotten that aspect. They need to be in their local Applebee's and they need to be annoying the absolute shit out of the waiters. The other customers in this Applebee's need to be on the verge of violence against this group who is just like singing Dwight's song like over and over again, ordering chicken nuggets, the waiter like not tipping the waiter. Like that's my experience of being in
Mhm.
a play.
They
um
didn't book somewhere for their cast party. They just decided to go to the
no,
local Applebee's.
they went to Applebee's and they just talked about the best and the worst of it. And then we need like another like epilogue even after that, is like someone crying in the parking lot because they're so sad that it's over. And then the seniors talking to the freshmen about like how lucky they are that they even made it into the show. And that they're definitely not going to get the lead next year because it never goes to sophomores. And like Missy in her senior year deserves the lead part, and you better watch out if you try to get it. So he just needed to lean into that more. I just need like
Mhm.
one additional scene. Like we totally like break we break the fourth wall. They're grabbing the camera and we're at Applebee's. Okay, and then the last one is, you know, we have all these brainiacs. They're coming up with these crazy inventions. People have like a death ray and a jetpack and everything. I want there to be one kid from like public school that has no idea how they got here, and then they go to present and they have just a baking soda volcano. Like they're really confused about why they are at this at this competition. And they're just like from their local science fair, public school. But like the audience eats it up. Like the government's like, holy shit, like we have weaponized lava, and like the kid just does not have the heart to tell them that it's like baking soda and vinegar volcano.
Uncle Sam owns your project. He can
Yeah.
have it.
No, they're like, read the fucking fine print. Like Mount Vesuvius is ours now, bitch. And the kid's like, yeah, like I'll sign like wherever you want, but like you're gonna have to add more baking soda for it to like do it again.
The alien comes down and even he's like, what's that?
Yeah, he like takes it for himself. He actually goes to take the asteroid, looks over, sees the baking soda volcano, goes and picks that up instead. And it just completely changes the worldview. So those were my remakes. What about you, Marriya?
So I had the idea that like maybe the actors are really bad at acting, because then I think it would create an even bigger dissonance between the behind the scenes and the play.
Mhm.
Like if they were like, um, your mother is dead. I don't know, just like something really like they try to do a transatlantic accent, and it's just like they're making choices like actors do, but none of them are landing.
Yeah,
Um,
like half of them have like a British accent, and they're like,
mhm.
we're in like Arizona, and they're like, no, but my mother was British.
It's part
I'm
of my
telling you,
character
it's
sheet.
our backstory.
And then they forget their lines and they do all that because there's like some kind of stuff where like Bryan Cranston shows up in the middle
Yeah.
of a scene, or like Augie leaves in the middle. But I think just more goofs, or like someone will like come on and they're like, Augie, where's your camera? And he's like, shit, left it in the green room.
Yeah. I like that.
um,
See, they needed to lean more heavily into the theater of it all.
mhm,
Like I'm actually shocked, with Bryan Cranston showing up midway through. I'm actually shocked that there wasn't someone saying like line,
right.
like he did not go all the way.
And then the other idea I had was Augie only takes selfies with a selfie stick. And so the entire time he just has like this selfie camera, and like he's like, everybody follow me on Insta, like my feed's insane.
I love
And
that.
he ends up being an influencer. And he's like, Midge Campbell, will you hold these hair care gummies?
Sugar bear.
Sugar bear hair, yeah. Um,
He's like, you
um,
don't have to use them, just hold this
just hold
bottle.
it. I'm gonna do a lot for my brand. Sorry guys, I'm going live and there's an alien here. Um, and then I also thought that um this is, I mean, Wes Anderson is obviously very innovative. But in the fact that it's like a movie about a play within a movie, I don't know. He's not the first one to do it. Um, and so I think we need to go back to the OG source material, which is High School Musical. Um, and so a couple years pass, and the town where they filmed this movie, the original Asteroid City, they're like, oh my God, we're finally going to put on the Asteroid City play. And then a bunch of people from the original cast come back, and we have a series that follows the drama of putting on this play. And it's called Asteroid City, the play, the series, ACTPTS.
Okay.
Um, um,
It's Olivia
on
Rodrigo.
Disney Plus, yeah, with Olivia Rodrigo, yeah. So I think
I,
that would be a good option.
I love it. That is absolutely what needs to happen.
Mm,
All right. Well, any last words before we move into what we've been watching?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
On Who's Your Daddy, obviously, like Jason Schwartzman, member of the Coppola family,
Oh, is
and
he?
Yeah, and the Coppolas I think also co-wrote this, so
Oh,
yeah,
who's
all that.
like, is there like a family tree of,
Yeah,
of
Jason Schwartzman is cousins with Nick Cage.
yeah.
So, yeah. And then Tilda Swinton was like this big, like her very Scottish, from a very prominent Scottish family, and she was friends with Lady Diana when she was in boarding school.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, maybe that helped her. And then Bryan Cranston was born in Hollywood, and he was the son of a radio actress and an actor and former amateur boxer. And then obviously Maya Hawke, daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. Don't even care because I love her.
She is amazing. I love her too.
And
All
those
right.
are the stats, yeah. So
Well,
Brooke, what have you been watching lately?
I'll go first because I don't have much. I started watching Narnia and then I stopped to watch Asteroid City. And then before that, my roommate and I watched the 2018 Florence Pugh horror film Malevolent,
Hmm.
which was okay. I think it was like, I think Florence herself said like she had to do a couple of like shittier films before she got to like the caliber that she wanted to do. She's a great actress as always. I thought the like plot was just a little bit lacking. There's some good moments. It's like about Florence Pugh, her like mom was like a psychic or like a medium. She could see like and hear dead people, and then it like eventually drove her crazy, and doctors thought she had like schizophrenia, and I think she ends up like offing herself
Hmm.
because of it. Like it's kind of like a curse.
She
And so
okay?
then like who?
The person who off themselves?
Is she okay? No, very dead. Very, very dead. Mom does
Spoiler.
she does not make an appearance in this film, but Florence Pugh pretends to be Florence Pugh is her daughter, and she pretends to have her mom's gift and like goes and kind of like mooches off of people who are wanting to like speak to their dead loved ones or think that they may be like haunting their house. But then she goes to this like mansion, which weirdly it's set in England. This is my one gripe about it. It's set in the like in England, I think, or UK in general, and Florence Pugh has an American accent. I was like, what? Like, why? Why did we have to do that? I guess it's because like her mom moved the kids to America, but I was like, that was so unnecessary for poor little Flo to be like, yeah, this is a British film, but we actually want you to have an American accent because of this backstory. But they go to this like mansion in like the English countryside to help this lady who says that she keeps hearing like girls scream because she like ran like a foster care or like an orphanage or foster care for little girls or something, and they say that her son, quote unquote, spoilers ahead, they say that her son like murdered these like three little girls. But then like as the film goes on, people start to go missing from this like crew because they like film all of their stuff to like promote their medium services, I guess. People start go missing, and then it turns out that actually it was like the lady, the matriarch, that had murdered these children because they like were acting out of line, and she like sewed their mouths shut because they couldn't keep quiet. And it actually
It's
wasn't
not
her.
how you discipline.
That's not, no. That's actually called gentle
That's
parenting.
like a one-time fix. You want to do something that'll
No, you can cut the mouths back open. Not permanently sure. They weren't glued or anything. It's just a little bit of sewing. So yeah, that was that one. It kind of just like I felt like they could have done more with the characters and more with the ending because it kind of ended abruptly, but I did like it. And then that's kind of like it. I don't think I've really watched much else. Um, I'm sure I have, but I don't have it written down. So can't remember. But what about you, Marriya? What have you been watching?
I watched the 2022 folk horror Florence Pugh film, The Wonder.
Oh.
And they let her be British in this one, so
They said you can let it out. Let out that accent.
but basically it's like set right after the like Great Famine. And so basically this little girl says that she is this little girl in like Ireland says that she hasn't eaten for 4 months
Oh,
and she's living off of like God. And so Florence Pugh goes to like check it out because she's a nurse. Um, and they're like, is this girl living off of a nutritional life force? They are like, maybe she's using magnets to feed herself. I don't know. It's it's old. Um, and then like she discovers that like her mom is chewing up food and like spitting it into her mouth
baby burning it.
secretly. Yeah, like secretly, like when she kisses her goodnight.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's like really uncomfortable. And it wasn't my favorite. Um, Interesting story, but like there's a lot of like feeding tubes and choking and yeah, so wasn't my favorite. And it's like the same woman who wrote Room with Brie Larson and all that stuff.
oh,
So
I
another fucked up situation from her. Another fucked up situation from Emma Donahue.
I have not watched Room, but I saw a clip on TikTok this like past week, and then I watched multiple scenes on YouTube, kind of put them together. So I watched a little bit of Room.
But yeah, it was interesting and Tom Burke is in it. His parents are David Burke and Anna Calder Marshall, and his godfather was Alan Rickman, so connection to Keira Knightley. And then I also watched The Secret of Karma, which was 71 out of 73 Brendan Fraser films. Should never have been made. Literally the worst movie I've ever seen in my
We
entire
texted
life.
about that one, right?
Yeah, it was like I don't understand what happened. Like I don't know if it was like COVID, I don't know what happened, but like half of it is dubbed for like no reason and like except for like Brendan Fraser. So I don't know if they were like we wanted to dub Brendan Fraser, but it's Brendan Fraser, so we decided to leave him alone, but everything else is dubbed and it's basically like this guy is writing this sci-fi screenplay and then he like starts to die and then he like starts seeing his alternate realities. I don't know, it's super confusing and not good and it was painful to watch.
Uh,
So would not recommend. Brendan looks great in it, but like at what cost? And then I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I hated, which
hmm.
is so disappointing because the Ant-Man movies are my favorite Marvel movies, but they basically Marvel was like, "Hey, we know everyone loves the Ant-Man movies. You know why they love them? Let's not include any of those elements in this newest movie." So like all of like the funny like sidekicks and all of the banter and stuff is not in this one for like no reason.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, they were like really hoping that Paul Rudd could sell the whole thing and it was too much pressure even for Paul Rudd.
Yeah, he's charismatic, but he cannot carry the weight of the world on his beautiful shoulders.
Yeah. And then has Evangeline Lilly, who I didn't realize one of her first roles was as an uncredited cop in the Lizzie McGuire movie. So
That's very weird.
and Michelle Pfeiffer, apparently soon after coming to Hollywood when she was 20, she was taken in by a vegetarian cult, which I didn't realize was a thing. Um, and they took control of her entire life and like all of her money, and she was brainwashed by these vegetarians.
Oh
I
my
don't know,
gosh.
a lot. And then Michael Douglas is the first child of Kirk Douglas and Diana Hill. So, and they even like they're so nepo that they had their own TV show called It Runs in the Family, which had the entire like Douglas family.
At least they own up to it. They're like, here it is.
And then I watched Somebody I Used to Know, which is the movie with Allison Brie that was uh directed and written alongside with Dave Franco, and that one was also terrible. Would not recommend it.
Been a bad streak for you.
It's been a really bad streak. It was just basically like this woman loses her job as a showrunner, protect the union, and she like goes home and finds her like ex-boyfriend, and he's getting married, and he doesn't tell her that, and he cheats with her kind of, and but then he's still portrayed as like a nice guy, and he still like wins in the end. So it's just like yeah, like no one in that film was like a good person. And then I watched Only Murders in the Building has come back, which is good for me. So we're back with season 3, which also has Paul Rudd, but he luckily has other people to rely on as well. And so that's good so far. And I'm on like the Reddit page and listening to all the conspiracy theories, but it like does make me feel like shit, because I was like, I came up with this great theory, and then it was like, no, that was just the show. That was just what they wanted you to get out of it. I was like, I think he's actually talking to a cookie, and then everyone else picked up on that too. So that was just what they wanted to communicate. That wasn't me being smart. That was just the lines.
You were like, yes, good job.
But it has Steve Martin, who his first job was at Disneyland selling guidebooks on the weekend. And he was captured in the background of the home movie of Disneyland, which became his first film appearance. So good for him.
All right. Well, Marriya, where can they find us and you?
They can find me in peril and probably crying because school starts this week and I don't have anything prepped. So if you want to give me a hug or support and not hate on me, at Marriya Schwarz on all accounts. And if you want to talk to the pod, you can talk at Remake Hot Take on all channels, and we will love you. And we apparently Brooke tells stories better than people's girlfriends. That's one of the random comments we've gotten. So let us know. Compare Brooke to your girlfriend. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, just compare me to every woman in your life, and whether or not I'm a better storyteller. Feels a bit misogynistic, but one day I could be your girlfriend, and then I would tell a better story than all previous girlfriends. But yeah, you can find me at b_reesecup at Instagram. I guess Threads, but not doing anything over there.
You should tell stories.
Tell stories. I'm so good at it. I'm far and above anyone's girlfriend.
There was also another comment where like it was about you talking about how you specifically love Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, and you're not attracted to him necessarily in other things, and how it's some like Jeff Goldblum is someone's like entire sexuality. And someone just said, what are you even talking about? And then someone just said, Jeff Goldblum.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love the comment section's really working together to get to the bottom of that mystery that I threw them. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for us.
Howdy do. Howdy do.
Dear alien. Walmart yodeling kid. How did that song go? All I wanna do, and Lord is in cry, that last long day she said goodbye.
Remember when I listened to that all finals?
Yeah.
The Tom Hiddleston version. And I listened to it for like 48 straight hours.
That was unhealthy. That was
mental health.
That was mental illness.
That was a mental illness.
Lord, I don't know what to do. Innocent cry, although that last song day she said goodbye. Bye.
Bye.